You're listening to The Artist Athlete, episode 80. This podcast is dedicated to circus. It's a place for professionals in the industry to share their stories, viewpoints, and information, and a place for outsiders to get a sneak peek into this world. Hey friends, fans, and enemies. I'm Shannon McKenna. I'm the host of the Artist Athlete podcast and the founder of theartistathlete.com. If you are a listener of the podcast for a very long time and you don't know about Circus Talk, it's pretty awesome. And all summer, July and August, I have taken my graham crackers and my marshmallows and my chocolate and a little campfire, and I'm just setting up summer camp over at the Circus Talk podcast section of their website. And they have so much more than podcasts on their website. They have news updates. They have casting calls for shows. It's just a huge database of information, basically. It's super international, super inclusive, has something for everybody. So circustalk.com, go check them out. If you came here from Circus Talk, hey, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. The Artist Athlete podcast is funded solely by an amazing group of people on the website Patreon. So if you love what you're listening to, if this is your first episode, you listen to it, you're like, damn, that was some good shit. I want more. And you binge all the other episodes and you want to support the creation of more episodes, you can go to patreon.com/theartistathlete. You can give as little as $1, and every dollar goes into making this podcast what it is today, tomorrow, and as long as circus lasts, which is forever. Despite recent events. We'll talk about it. My guest today is Isabelle Chasse, and I don't have access to the internet right now, so I can't read off her formal bio, but I am such a fan of Isabelle's. I don't usually fangirl super hard over my guests, but you can hear me doing just that in my interview. Isabelle Chasse is the woman on the red tissue in the video version of the show Quidam from Cirque du Soleil. She was not the original. That was Isabelle Vaudel. But Isabelle Chasse is the one in the video and is the one who kind of made aerial silks take off, not only in the contemporary professional circus world, but a bunch of people like myself and others saw that act and were like, wow, I want to do that. She further became a pioneer in the industry when she co-founded the Seven Fingers, which is a contemporary circus company based in Montreal, Quebec. About 2 episodes ago, not long ago, I interviewed Gypsy Snyder, who is another co-founder of the Seven Fingers. And I usually like to stagger my interviews so you don't get a lot of the same type or the same inspirations or the same kind of community within the community of circus of people so close together. I like to have a range. But it was very important to me to put out this episode right now in light of the bankruptcy of Cirque du Soleil. I think it's worth mentioning that this interview was filmed before Cirque du Soleil declared bankruptcy. So when we talk about Cirque and the pandemic, Isabelle isn't referencing that specific instance. However, it's still super relevant, and I wanted to get this interview out before it stopped being relevant, because I think Isabelle has a lot to share about what it's like to be a circus artist during the pandemic, and I found it really relatable, and I hope a lot of you guys do too. So, here is my interview with Isabelle Chasse. Isabelle Chasse, welcome to the Artist Athlete podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I very rarely get fangirly over artists who I have on, but I'm such a fan of yours and have been such a long time that I'm kind of nervous.
Oh,
I'm also, it's really hot today in Montreal, so I'm sweating. So.
Yeah. It's the heat. It's the heat.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure if we met in person, you'd find it much less intimidating, as I think that's not the aura I project, I think.
No, I don't know. I get a lot when people meet me, they always tell me that they get disappointed and they're always like, I thought you were taller.
Yeah.
Do you ever get that?
Yeah. I get that a lot. And I got that a lot when I was working actually on Quidam and Cirque du Soleil. I think it's because I was alone on stage too. You don't have like that reference of scale. So you imagine people being so much bigger than they are. And then you meet them at the grocery store and you're like, what? That's you?
Yeah,
that's all? Like that thing I was looking at and I was, wow, it's just an ordinary girl at the grocery store.
So I always start having people introduce themselves in their own words. So who are you? What do you do?
Wow. Yeah.
I know.
And I mean, right now too, this question is so strange to answer because of the pandemic. What are we and what do we do? And, our art form is so compromised right now. And so I could tell you what I did like 2 months ago, and I can tell you who I'm going to try to be in a few months again. I don't know. No, but I think I'm a circus performer. I started circus when I was 13 professionally, and I was primarily a contortionist at the beginning, and then I learned to do some aerial when I was about in my 20s. And then I co-founded the Seven Fingers, les Sept Doigts de la main, with my colleague, friends. And in the last few years, I've been doing more directing and more managing than I have been doing circus myself, which is a normal transition, I think, also because I'm 43 years old now. And I've done a lot of shows in the past. So I think I'm lucky that I never got really badly injured. And I've just sort of eased out into this other form of doing circus. So I think, I'm lucky.
So you started professionally when you were 13?
Yeah.
You didn't come from a circus family. That's correct?
No, not at all. Both my parents were teachers.
Oh, nice. So how did you find circus?
I was always a very active child, and I was we lived out in the country, and I was climbing trees so high that I think on my 5th birthday or something like that, my grandfather gave my father this massive ladder that went up to like 30 feet or something like that, because the reality was that I was climbing so high in the trees that I would like get stuck because I didn't know how to come down again. And then the branches I was using were way too fragile for my father to be able to come and get me. So my grandfather gave my father this massive ladder so he could come and get me high up in the trees. So that kind of like, paints the portrait of what kind of child I was.
Yeah.
And then I did a little bit of gymnastics, but I was coming from a very small town, and the gymnastics club was really not that evolved. So I got a bit bored with that. And I saw an ad in the newspaper about the circus school in Montreal, and I just showed my mom, and I said, this is where I want to be going. And she was a very supportive mom. And so I did the auditions, and that was like, back in the late 80s. So it was much easier then to enter the circus school than it is now. I don't think, I don't know if I was like, had the capacities that I had then, but nowadays if I would go into the circus school, but I was at the right time, at the right place. And I went in, and then I did about 2 years of circus school. And there was a Chinese master, contortion Chinese master, who was brought in from Cirque du Soleil to teach the lady that was doing contortion at the Cirque du Soleil at the time. And they thought, it'd be so ridiculous not to permit certain girls to get the opportunity to learn from a master, while she's in town. And so they picked out the 10 most flexible girls at the circus school then. And we started this really intensive training with this Chinese master for about 3 months. And at the end of the 3 months of that training, we were only 4 left in the group, because it was really it was the Chinese way. And we're all little Quebecois girls, it's It's challenging. It's challenging.
Can you give me an example of what you mean by the Chinese way? Like what were some of the things you had to do?
We would do like endurance handstands against the wall, but the North American way would be to do 5 minutes. Oh my God, that's so much. But for them, it was like 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And just the intensity of the training. Yeah. I mean, how far they push you. And if you say, oh my God, this hurts, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to push 10 more degrees, and not like, okay, just hold it for 1 second and we're finished. But that was great. I mean, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And she was really fantastic too. So I think it's, we stayed on the 4 girls, and then, Cirque du Soleil saw us training, and then they were like, oh, this is really interesting. We could provide you for, 1 year of your schooling so that you do everything in the circus school, because at the time it was only after school programs and things like that. It wasn't like a full-time school with recognition from the ministry and all that stuff. It was more parascolaire, or, what do you call that? Like
extracurricular.
Yeah, totally. So then we had a teacher come into the circus school and teach us like academics in the circus school. And so we were able to train like 4 or 5 hours a day for 1 year plus doing school. And then we left on tour with Cirque du Soleil because of this whole 1 year agreement of intensive training. So basically, I left on tour when I was 13 with Cirque du Soleil in this contortion quartet, some of my best friends, and we still remain close. And we worked together for more than 10 years, and we did a couple of different acts, and we were part of a few Cirque du Soleil shows and won a bunch of prizes, and it was a good time.
It sounds like such an amazing opportunity to be so young and get to kind of see the world.
Yeah.
With friends. You weren't alone, a soloist at that point. You had your friends who were with you and could do it with you. That sounds lovely.
Yeah.
Ideal.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was really amazing. And I mean, Cirque du Soleil was so different back then. Like there was only like when I was the first show that I did for Cirque du Soleil, there was only one show. So we were Cirque du Soleil, and it was really like
there was only one touring show at a time.
Yeah. So the whole dynamics was different. Like we knew, everybody knew the artists, and everybody knew who was working in the office, and the 150 people on tour were very, very, very connected and almost, like a family. Yeah.
It's a little different now. Well, now there's no. It's not.
Well, yeah. Right now it's not anymore. Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see.
Exactly.
It'll come back.
Yeah, I think so. How did you make the jump then from doing a contortion number as a group to being a soloist?
Well, that's kind of funny because actually I would have kept going with the contortion quartet, but it wasn't the desire of all the 3 other girls. One of them wanted to go back to school, to go to theater school. And one, her mother was very ill. And so she wanted to come back to Montreal. And so it kind of, the whole group sort of dispersed. And I was just kind of like, but I still want to do shows. And I still want to be in Cirque. And so this opportunity came up because the lady who was doing the tissue at a time, Isabelle Vaudel on Quidam, she was injured a lot, and they needed a replacement for her. And so I came back to Montreal, and I had 2 months to basically learn the discipline and come up with the act, and then go on tour as a support for her. And so then that was like the craziest 2 months of training ever. I hadn't done any aerial, and my forearms were just so killing me. I was like driving my car back home, and I couldn't drive with my hands. I had to drive with my forearms because my hands wouldn't close anymore to hold the wheel. and
I know this feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. And like all the little bones in your finger too, like just it was. Or
did you ever like wake up and you're like holding the tissue, like you're like I fall asleep sometimes and I wake up and I'm like my hands are like
gripped,
fists like gripping.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Do you ever have this?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, 2 months of crazy training, and the thing is also I was at the headquarters in Montreal, but I was pretty much the only one there because they had just opened the studios. And we were like 3 people in the whole building. It was like a really surreal time where I'm like, oh, I'm learning a new discipline. I'm 30 feet up in the air, kind of halfway, not by myself because there's trainers and this and that, but like, it was really, different. Very, I don't know.
My mind is blown right now because I feel like that act and you doing it because you're the one on the video is so iconic that the fact that you had just learned it in 2 months. What? That's crazy.
Yeah. And that there was somebody else before me doing it. Because of the video, like you said, now people think that I'm the original Quidam, but I'm actually the second one.
So when you replaced her, when you were in that transition period, what did the act look like before? Because I don't think I've ever seen the original Tissue act.
I mean, her act was very introvert and it was basically like her life story. It was very, very dramatic and very, very emotional. She had a long moment in it where she would spend in the cocoon. And it was very important for me when I had to do, like, basically you use the same costume and the same music and the same red silks, but it was very important for me to come up with my own material and to do, what felt right for my body and what felt right for me to stick to the music and to perform that. I think it was, her piece was great for her. But it wasn't me. It wasn't me. I couldn't perform her thing. It wasn't my story. It wasn't my thing. It wasn't my style. And it was, I think it's important to do your own thing.
Well, I think it's impressive that even though you've only had, at this point, you've only had 2 months on the silks, that you can even have a style of your own or have kind of a direction that you want to go in artistically. Yeah. Because I think about, I don't know why in my head, I'm like, it takes years to master these things and understand these things. But
but I think a lot of it is also, how can I say that? You can translate a lot of, somebody who does teeterboard can then do Russian swing, or somebody that does juggling can then do dancing, or, everything is sort of interconnected and intertwined. And I think I had, I knew already about stage presence. I had been doing shows with Cirque du Soleil for 10 years. I knew about rhythm and balance and something that was more like it wasn't so related to the actual apparatus for me. It was more related to how I work. And the fact that I had been working with 3 other girls, for me, like, the tissue's always been a partner. Like, it's never been just a thing. So for me, I wasn't doing a solo. I was doing a duet. I was doing a piece with something.
No, I mean, that's very clear. And it makes a lot of sense, too, because then it kind of makes you valuable as an artist. No matter what you're doing, the fact that you're the one doing it is the value. I feel like now I can't speak English for some reason. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Entirely. It makes sense.
Also, I think in a way, like, there's something about, it hadn't been done much before. Tissue was fairly new as a discipline. Like, although we find photographs or not photographs, but like drawings of ladies from the 1800s draped in silks. And, I think this discipline is probably way more ancient than we think. But at the same time, like, in our modern day or of contemporary circus, it was fairly new as a discipline. So basically, I was just like researching things, and it was really trusting of my body too. Like, I just everything I did really, really low to the ground, and just like figured out knots and figured out transitions and figured out things. And whenever it felt right, like, I was like, okay, yeah, I can take that 15 feet higher. And then when it felt right, it was like, yeah, I can take that 30 feet higher, not 30, another 15 feet higher. And without having like these preconceived ideas of like, oh, I shouldn't do this because this has been done, or I shouldn't do this because, and my coach was a guy that was teaching vertical rope. So he didn't have any background in tissue whatsoever. So the knots I was taught were basically like cordelis knots, like vertical rope knots. And then I just kind of like just jammed with it and like, oh, what if I cross it like this? And I'd like roll around on the floor for like half an hour trying to figure out like, but if my left knee is here and then I unhook it, then I'll do a half turn and end up with the ankle key. You know, it's like I just figure things out and then like try it like really, really low. And then if it worked, I'd try it a bit higher. All of this in 2 months.
Amazing. And so you went on with Quidam, and how long did you tour with Quidam?
3.5 years, something like that.
Okay.
I finished the North American tour, and then I went on to the European tour.
What was that show like to be on for 3 years? It's one of my favorite Cirque shows, but it's very dark.
Yeah.
It's very dark. And I would imagine it would be very hard to sustain being in that darkness all the time.
Yeah.
Did you find that?
I think like definitely like I was on Saltimbanco before I was on Quidam, and I feel like there is a different energy, but then again, it was a different time in my life too. You know, I think more explosive and fun and light and colorful, but that was also my late teenage years, beginning of adulthood. And then in my 20s is when I was starting to do Quidam, which is then like you were saying, much more, not dark, but like turmoilous. Can you say that? And
yeah, tumultuous.
Tumultuous, yeah. And then, so I think it did like, you know, I had like, you know, the friendships I developed on Quidam were a bit more like existentialist and, you know, big questions. But I think it's also a matter of where you are at in your life. And yeah, part of it is the show. Yeah. Part of it is the age. But funny enough, though, like the people who are so often, I find that people who are the craziest and the funniest on stage are very often the most serious off stage. And the people who seem so serious off stage, or, you know, I said the same thing twice, but you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. The people who are more serious on stage are like clowns off stage.
Yeah, exactly. They keep goofing around, and so
I wonder why that is.
The need for balance.
Interesting. What do you think you are? I feel like you're more serious on stage.
I'm more serious on stage. I think I was more, I don't know. I think as a person, I was way lighter as a kid and as a young adult than I am now. Like, I feel like now everything is quite grave and quite serious and quite full of responsibilities and full of doubt. And when I was anyway younger, I was just more free and fearless, and, you know, I don't know if that happens to everyone when they grow older, but surely it happens to me.
I feel like I have always been afraid and full of doubts. I just didn't realize it until I was older.
Maybe you'll shed it then. Like, as you grow older, you'll shed it.
I think so. I don't really believe in horoscopes, but I did hear something about, I'm a Capricorn. I was born in January. And I did hear that Capricorns get younger as they get older. So maybe, I don't know.
There's hope for you and not for me.
Yeah, sorry. You had your good times.
Yeah, exactly. No,
So you finished Quidam, and did you start the fingers after that? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah,
with the seven of you.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't finished Quidam when we started the fingers. So the lady I was replacing, Isabelle Vaudel, she got better after a while and she wanted to get back to the show, and I wanted to start the fingers. So we made this arrangement that we would do 6 months off and 6 months off each. And so basically we founded the fingers when I had my 6 months off, and we created the first show. And then we had already planned to take a 6-month break after we started the company, because we were pretty much, injecting a lot of our money into it. And we knew we'd be broke after 6 months of doing that. So we wanted to honor some other contracts to be able to put food on the table. And so I went back and forth between Seven Fingers and Quidam for just 2 cycles. So 7 Fingers, Quidam, 7 Fingers. And then it was like, okay, it's working with the fingers, and it's going to have to be a full-time thing because it's too complicated with the 7 of us like going off on different contracts and things like that. So either we commit to it and we stick to it, or we just call it quits. And we decided to commit to it. So yeah, then it's been 18 years already.
So crazy.
It is crazy.
What was it like to create that first show? Because you, it sounds like, grew up kind of on stage at Cirque du Soleil, where you had a role assigned to you, and then you were filling in for someone else. So, and the fingers, I mean, it didn't exist before. There was no 7 fingers style yet, because you were creating it at the time.
Yeah.
Was that difficult for you to change the way you were creating?
Yeah. I mean, I think there was, definitely different sort of leadership that were assumed by different members on the fingers. I think that for myself, I mean, at first I didn't want to do, that's funny. At first I didn't want to do tissue again. I was like, that piece was very iconic and it was, what it is. And I just wanted to, I just had it with tissue and I didn't know what to do with it anymore. And and Shayna came up with the idea to include the apple to the act. And then I was like, oh yeah, okay, now it's a challenge. Like, how could I create a piece where I'm gonna, my main goal pretty much is to finish eating an apple while I'm on the tissue. So then it became really fun again. But I had never created an act where my main goal was to eat an apple.
How many apples did you eat in the creation of that act? I love that act.
Oh my God, way too many. It's so crazy.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And also on tour, I'd have to find apples everywhere. And sometimes we were in Japan and, they cost $20 an apple. And you're like, oh my God, that was so crazy to have this idea to do that.
Oh my God, I didn't even think of that. That's so funny.
Yeah. And choking also, or finding apples that are way too soft. You go to the market and all the apples are really soft. And so you just plunge your teeth in it at the very beginning of the act and it just plops out of your mouth. And you're like, oh, great. Now I have to just improvise the whole thing because I've pretty much lost my routine. Yeah.
Or you have to act like you're really enjoying that apple and it's this gushy.
Yeah, exactly. That too. Or when it's really, really, really juicy and you have your head upside down and the whole juice of the apple flows into your nose and you're like, oh, I'm going to choke. Yeah. All of this beautiful stuff. No, it was really fun.
These are working. Yeah. It's such a great act. I'm going to post it so that people, if you haven't seen Isabelle Chasse's act where you eat the apple, what's the name of the act? Do you have a name for it, or is it just...
well, I mean, it was on Temptation from Tom Waits. So, yeah, we used to call it Temptation or, Tissue. One of those.
Really cool.
I never really came up with names for pieces. That's true.
But what was it like to collaborate with the 7 of you? Where did you meet initially? Did you meet separately and then all come together? Or did the 7 of you sit down and were like, we're going to make this?
Well, we had
I'm sure you've told this story 100 times.
Yeah, but it's always...
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's great. That's what interviews are about. Well, we met for a weekend in San Francisco because there was this opportunity and Sam was very ready to start his own company. And we were talking a lot, me and him at the time, where we're like, oh yeah, let's do it together. And then, I had this conversation with Shayna and she was like, oh yeah, we're thinking of doing the same thing in San Francisco with Gypsy. And so I was like, oh, well, why don't we just make one company all together, And then there was a few more people that were very interested in the project that were kind of floating around or roaming around. And then we said, okay, so to decide who's going to be committed to the project, let's say we're going to meet in San Francisco for a weekend. And if people are interested and they don't have the money to get there, we have air miles, we have this, we have that. So we'll shout them out or we'll figure it out. It doesn't matter. If you're interested, you show up for a weekend in San Francisco. And then out of the 12, maybe 10, 12 people that were interested, only 7 showed up in San Francisco. And then we had to organize the whole weekend where the first day was to talk about basically where we are at in life, where we want to go in life, what our aspirations are, but very, 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 very big picture of life. And then the second day we were like, okay, so now it's about ideas. Blank page, we're doing a show. What is it about? And we were just like brainstorming and like telling each other different ideas that we've had in the last months or years or whatever that we were really keen on putting on stage. And then we, found the throughout thread, and then found the name of the company and found this and found that. And then we left and we all went each our own ways for a few months. And then we met back in Montreal in end of March, I think, April. So that we had like a 2-month creation period before the first show in July. And it was very collaborative, and it was very collaborative. And, some of the work was really like, okay, so you're going to do, Pat's going to do the set, and Seb's going to do the music, and Shayna's going to write this text, and we're each responsible for our own acts, but they have to somewhat like fit all together. And so we were very task oriented in the dispatch of the work, very organic and responsive, as well. Like it wasn't like, okay, you do this and this is, the line ends here and your leadership finishes here. But it was still very organized in an organic way.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, we did the first show and it was crazy because like basically that's all we did for 3 months was to think of all this, everything from the music to the staging to the costumes to the little prop. Like now we're like, oh, now we have kids and businesses and houses and things, and it's a different time, than to be like able to just fully concentrate on creating that 1.5 hour show, 7 brains together doing only that. With Gypsy had the kids already, so that was 1 kid. Gypsy and Pat had 1 kid already. But anyway,
as the fingers took off, were you also performing on your own? Do you still perform? What does your performing career look like? Because I want to talk about directing and creating and all of that. But I'm interested to hear.
Well, did I perform? I mean, from the moment that we started the company, like for real, when we said, let's go all in, basically whatever contract we brought in from outside, we would just put all the money into the Seven Fingers pot, and then like each give ourselves an equal salary. So if I did a gig, here, or if Sam did a gig there, or if Gypsy taught at the circus school or whatever it was that we were, bringing in the money, we'd all put it in the same pot and then disperse it equally. So I still did a couple of gigs for Cirque. I still did a couple of corpos here and there. And we did I did a whole bunch of corpos too for the Seven Fingers, with the apple, the act with the apple, or the act with the flashlights. And then later on when I did La Vie with the crazy character, I did a whole bunch of corpos too with the act with the straitjacket, which is much more comical. I don't know if you've seen La Vie, but I play a crazy character.
I feel like I have seen a video of this, like of you in a straitjacket, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's like a comical contortion act, because basically like the character is, the premise of the whole show is that we're stuck in purgatory. And so every character is very archetypal. How do you say that?
Yeah.
It has a very
archetypal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
That.
Yep.
And, and so I was the crazy one. And so I wanted to do this like really intense tissue act where basically the storyline is that, the crazy person wants to escape from the asylum because she's actually not crazy, but she's been in there for so long that she became crazy. But then she misjudges the height of the building and ends up falling to her death. But she uses these sheets that are tied in together to escape. And so I basically I made up a new tissue apparatus, because I put in knots in, there was like 3 knots going down the tissue. So it was basically like 3 loops of tissue. And so I wanted to do this like really intense, and I had this crazy or beautiful, but like kind of disturbing music and premise. So to be able to like make the audience digest this, I had to like ease them into the character first with a little bit of laughter and a little bit of comical straitjacket stuff. And then they'd like dig it, they'd dig the character. And then I was able to go a bit hardcore, or not hardcore, but just more intense, So that's
because they were already with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're creating with the fingers or when you're making something new, what's your favorite part?
I don't know. I guess it's, my favorite part of creation is the aha moment, for sure. Like where I get really anxious about not having the right idea or the right thing. And then all of a sudden, like when something clicks and it just becomes so clear that that's what you have to be doing. And whether it's in my body as a performer, or it's in like seeing somebody, or it's in just an idea, it's always that for me. Like the aha moment is what I do for, It's so great. It's amazing. It just makes your day and month and year.
Do you have a methodology for like finding your aha moments? Like, I feel like sometimes they come out of nowhere, and sometimes I'm scrambling around in the dark for them.
Yeah.
But I've never found a method.
No, I haven't found my method either. I think it's about showing up. First of all, it's about showing up. So like taking the time to research or to like be in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes for me, it's like very often I think it's music. I'm very music driven. So if I have like, but it could be anything. It could be like a theme. Like I created a piece once about abandonment. Can you say that?
Mm-hmm.
Like letting go of something. And I had that. I was like, okay, it's going to be like that music, that chair, go. And then you just like take hours and hours and hours to like draw the skeleton. And I like to work in layers a lot too. So I'll do like a really rough first draft, like a sketch it out, the whole thing. And then like, I feel like by doing it and doing it and doing it again and again, without necessarily like placing every inch of the choreography or anything, like the blanks do fill themselves. And like what feels right is just becomes more and more fluid and more how can I say that? Like there's this concept of ease too in a piece that unless it's like really like not what you want to be talking about, there should be somewhat of it's not comfort, but like an ease to be doing whatever it is that, physically you need to be doing so that you can actually play it. Because if something is too hard, you just completely disconnect because you have to like struggle for your life. And then you can't perform it because you're actually just struggling for your life. Unless it's like that 1 second where that's exactly what you want to be saying in the piece that you're struggling for your life, then it works. But if it's not, it just loses the connection, So I think it's like you have to be able to find that for lack of a better word, that ease or that's simplicity or aerodynamism or whatever I don't know.
No, I love what you're saying though about how you kind of walk in and you work in layers. I love that image of like you draft the first layer and it's like you don't quite know all the pieces yet, but it's done. And then you go back to the second draft. It's almost like you're learning more about it by doing it over and over again.
Yeah, and
instead
maybe
of creating those moments.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they just come to you. Like if you have like this skeleton of like, okay, I'm gonna open up with this, and then I want it to go there, and then I want it to finish like that. And then you just like somehow it's like a mixture of like what makes the most sense, almost like ergonomically or what structurally. Like you're not gonna do, or you could do it, but I mean, if you're doing tissue, you're not gonna do 2 falls in a row because you're gonna have a boring climb in the middle. So if you do like a fall and then you do something at the bottom in your knot, and then you'll do something while you're climbing so that you're like breaking it up so it's not just redundant or so there's like a logical order to things, And then after that, I feel like it's just like a matter of like doing it over and over and over and over again. And then it just becomes the chain links they make themselves, you know?
Yeah, totally. Those connections happen organically, sounds like. Yeah. What is it like when you're choreographing on or for other people? I mean, obviously, I guess you're not really maybe choreographing isn't the right word, directing.
Yeah.
Do you work in the same way with artists?
Yeah. I mean, I tend to have a very sort of like a visceral idea of what the emotion or what the storytelling should be about. And then do like an overall, like more technical structure of what makes sense. Like I was saying, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what you place before or after. And then it's about rhythm. Then it's about, texturing it all. So it doesn't feel redundant or feel, I kind of use the same method as I use although I just beginning the conversation while saying I don't have a method, but maybe I do have a method. I don't know. I've never taught. I've taught like very few people and very few times. So I never had to like really sort of organize my process to be able to teach somebody that. I just,
Sure.
Well,
yeah, but I think teaching and directing people are two different things. Because presumably when you're directing someone,
they're already at a level where you're like, okay, let's massage that dough into something else, and you're not putting all the ingredients to make the dough.
Do you have any favorite projects or favorite things that you've made, whether it's yourself or on other people?
I mean, I would say my favorite project is now on hold because of the freaking pandemic. Yeah. Hopefully it'll jumpstart again in the next few months. And I was in the middle of writing the new Sept Doigts show by myself for the first time, like a big girl. And I had this amazing bunch of collaborators around the table, amazing bunch of artists that were super keen to collaborate too. And I had tons of great ideas, and now it's just on hold and it's really painful.
Can you say anything about it? Are you allowed to?
I think, I mean, for me, the show was about memory in the big lines of it, or actually the loss of memory. And it had something very, very theatrical and very dancey. And anyway, so that's the project I'm actually currently in love with, that I don't know how to channel my energy to make it happen or transform it into this new reality that we're living now. But I mean, I like, if I look at the past, I loved performing on Quidam. Like I loved the band, I mean, that's one of the craziest, most amazing things when you perform for Cirque du Soleil, is like having these like 10 musicians on stage, like just carry the piece every night, and like feeling that power. And like, I was always really good friends with the singers and the guitarists, because they had like amazing solos in that piece. And I was always like, oh my God, like I never really thought that act was a solo. For me, it was like as much the singer who went, oh, it was so important.
Yes, it was beautiful.
Yeah. So,
are you a musician?
No.
Do you do any music?
No.
Huh.
No, but I have a great sensitivity to music, I think. I mean, great as in big, not as in great.
Not as in well done.
Exactly.
I understand.
Not as in I'm so great at music. No, I'm very, I get very moved by music. A lot of the times too, as a performer, it's, I've done these shows with Cirque du Soleil where it's just basically you could just be doing the same thing every night, just doing your job. But it was never the case for me. Like I love doing like, I love like the challenge of being present in that moment for those people who've paid their tickets, and it doesn't matter if it's like the 1,750th third time that you're doing this piece. For them, it's the only time they're going to see it,
Yeah.
How
did you tackle that challenge? Because I think the interesting thing about presence is if you try to be present, then you're not actually being present, you're trying to be present. And you're so caught up with, am I being present, that you miss the moment.
Yeah.
So what did it feel like to you? What did that presence feel like?
Well, if I talk about the Quidam act, just because that's the one I probably did like the most and the longest, and I was on my own, so without sort of too much outside disruption. I used to have like a whole ritual before I went on stage where I was very meditative. And I did like this whole sort of like body scan where I would just like really tap into like every little vein of my body just to know what status I was in that day. And not just like physically, but like physically / emotionally / whatever, everything. And then like after like going through that sort of body scan, I just tried to keep that sensation, you know, of it's almost like I don't know, like a cat who's going to pounce for his prey or something. You're just like buzzing, but like really quietly buzzing, you know? So it's not like this show, or you're not like, you know, demonstrating that you're buzzing. You're just buzzing. Does that make any sense? Yeah, it's a bit...
Totally. Actually, it does. I just don't know if I could say it any better than that. You're buzzing. I'm here for a buzz.
I'm just going to buzz right in front of you for a while, okay? Let me buzz my 5 minutes. No, but I mean, like, it sounds all weird and hippie or something, but it's like actually very scientific in my head. Like the movement of all the atoms in your body, you know, vibrating, or this sort of like consciousness of electricity. But you don't have to demonstrate it. No, and this is when it starts to look fake too, or overplayed, or you know.
Yeah.
I think if you feel it for yourself, it's like actors method acting.
Did you learn this from someone, or is this all your own kind of research and work? Did you have performers who influenced the way that you perform?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, so many. But I never had like a you know, an idol, or you know, I just have many people. And many friends too, and not that I have that many friends. I just mean like many people that I have conversations with. That like,
I'm sure you have a lot of friends, Isabelle.
Maybe, I don't know, but just
you had a lot of people who you had conversations with.
Yeah, just
about performing.
about performing, about life in general, about, you know, the meaning of our presence on this planet, and the sort of sacredness too of the stage space, and you know, that tribute that we have to share our emotions and communicate certain concepts or realities or ideas or with the audience. And I don't know. I say I don't know a lot, I really don't know. I'm just trying to.
Well, I don't know. None of us know. I'll also cut a lot of those out in the end, so you'll just.
Thank you. You're gonna make me sound super amazingly smart and perfect. I love it.
Trust me, that's my job. Fix it in post. I also have to make myself sound smart too, so it's a little selfish, but I'm happy to do it. And so I guess aside from like crying in your bed during this pandemic time, have you come up with any new answers or anything that's kind of changed these questions you've had about life and performing and the sacred space of performing? And how is this time for you? How are you doing is really the question I'm trying to ask. Are you okay?
Yeah. Am I okay? I don't know. I mean, I'm really, I was just telling my friend today, I feel like I'm like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, in the sense that I feel like I just flip all the time. Not flip, but like switch emotions. So I think it's very, it's very anxiogène. It's very full of anxiety. What's going on around the world, and the uncertainties of our métier, of our job is very unsettling. And then I turn around and I have a beautiful son and he's happy and healthy, but at the same time I have him at home with me all the time, so it's very hard for me to concentrate and work in a proper way. And then like that, 5 seconds later I'll be like, I'm gonna go do some grocery shopping, and then I feel like, oh, I'm so fortunate, I actually have money to buy food, unlike other people right now. Mm-hmm. And then I'll have like, such sadness for those people, and then 5 minutes later I'll have a great idea to do, shows in peep shows. What better place, one-on-one plexiglass, go, let's do it. Yeah, so it's really, I just feel like I'm like 5 people in one, and I feel responsible for all these employees that we had to let go, and I feel terrible that we've all these artists that we're not able to employ at the moment, and it just feels, that pretty much sums up how I feel, I think.
You feel a lot.
I feel a lot. Yeah, I feel a lot. That's for sure. And I don't quite know like how to because I feel like I'm a person of action too. Like I like doing things. I can't just stand, like that's what I meant earlier by saying like, the first thing is just show up, like go there, go to your training space and sit there, and not sit, actually, like do something, do. And right now it just feels like I can't do.
How do you show up? Where do you show up to?
Yeah, I can't wait for the governments to say like, yeah, sure, your idea, whatever, in the peep shows, it works, and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, and we can reopen this, and we, and then we can start like building because the reality is that for the next few years it's not going to be the same, and maybe for a very long time it's not going to be like 500,000 people sitting in one theater watching a thing, which is what we did. So like what can we do? And it's not for lack of ideas. There's tons of different concepts that can emanate from this. We just have to have the rights to do it. Which is now it's completely understandable that it's not the reality right now. It'll be in a couple of months. And right now it's still very important to take care of everyone's health first,
right?
But I can't wait to open the valves again. Like not just like in my head, but like physically.
Yeah,
have people in a studio and do stuff. Like, oh my God, this is gonna feel so good. I'm itching, and it's only been 2 months. It feels like it's been like 2 years. How are you feeling?
I'm very hopeful about the circus community, actually. It was a really dark time for me maybe last month. But yeah, right now I'm feeling really, maybe it's because the sun's out now.
Yeah, it helps for sure.
But I have a lot more faith than I did a month ago that we're all going to be okay. And like you said, like it's going to look very different. But I also think it's an opportunity for a lot of artists to make a lot of things that maybe would have been overlooked or swallowed up because they had contracts with Cirque du Soleil, or because you talk about with the fingers, the only way that you guys were able to have the time to do that is because you all chose to show up at that weekend and commit to that. And I think now is almost like a period where people will start to generate things. And as things open back up, however they do, artists will get really inventive on what that will look like. But it will be, I don't think it'll ever be the same as it was.
Yeah. It's like, it'd be so great to have it all, like have the steady work that Cirque du Soleil provides for so many people, and have like the more experimental, like more of a tribute to more experimental stuff too, and everything in the middle. I think it would be such a bummer if Cirque would die, and I think it would be such a bummer if the people who are making experimental things now, they just like feel like they're gonna go and do farming because that's what they should be doing with their lives. And it's like, no, but don't stop doing your weird shit. It's really awesome. you know, but it's like,
Totally.
but I can't pay my, you know, my bread with my weirdness at the moment. So I'm just going to go and farm, you know, and, but if it's temporary, that's great. You know, like you said, maybe, you know, when everything starts again, then everything feeds everything, you know, so all these life experiences are also going to feed the artistry or the discipline. But
yeah,
I just hope it doesn't take too long for it to start again.
I know. I hope so too. For your sake as well. And for your show's sake. Because I can't wait to see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What advice would you give to yourself at the beginning of your career?
Oh, wow. At the very beginning, I say it's weird. It's not like one black and white kind of thing, because I feel like if I say, you know, like trust your instincts, I feel like I kind of have trusted my instincts, but maybe not enough. Like, or like, or don't be afraid to fail. It's like, yeah, well, I wasn't that afraid to fail, but I could have maybe, I don't know. Like I didn't, I don't know. I don't know. Wow. That's a hard one. It's not permanent, maybe. Like, you know, when you do something, you feel like it's so important and that it's going to be that for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? Like, but it's not, it's just that for then for so it's like to have that commitment to like really go for things, because it I don't know.
No, that makes sense.
Like when you create a piece,
I feel like,
sorry, go ahead.
When I was young I'm 33, but when I was first creating, it felt like everything I made had to be the best. And it was like my thing that was going to like represent me to the world. And now I feel like I'm a little less precious about the things I make. I'm like, this is what this is going to be now. Is this what you mean?
Yeah, totally. And they're like chapters, or they're like, you know, paragraphs sometimes of your whole history, of your whole life. You know, it's like, of course it's important, like to be true to what you want to be doing and saying in that moment. But at the same time, that is very fluid. That can change in 2 months, and you can change that routine if you don't like it anymore. And if it's not perfect, you're going to make another one that's going to be more pertinent or more like just keep churning the work, keep making stuff.
That's very good advice. Isabelle, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
This was such a pleasure. I'm still so fangirly.
You're way too sweet.
Yeah. It's nice though. I mean, this also, like, I'm really happy I started doing this, because it's really nice to call up people and just talk about circus, that thing we used to do.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Yeah. We'll do it again. I mean, you'll do it again. I'll watch you do it.
Deal. Oh God. I'll be sweating the whole time.
That's good. Sweat's good. It makes you cling to the tissue.
That's true.
You gotta find positive in everything.
That was my interview with Isabelle Chasse. Isn't she awesome, y'all? She had so many amazing insights about creation, about artistry, and I want to get into some of them. I did a symposium last weekend for the Irish Aerial Dance Festival. I gave a little talk about the podcast that was titled 3 Things I've Learned from Interviewing Over 80 Professionals in the Circus Industry. It was 3 common themes that I kind of got from having all of these different experiences, getting to sit down and talk for hours and hours with different people. And I didn't talk about this, but it's something that I find really fascinating. Every artist I've talked to who gives these performances that are so breathtaking, so groundbreaking, every artist who I know who is so popular for the quality of their work always talks to me about this interest in being present on stage. They're really invested, Isabelle included, in this work of being in the moment. And they usually have a some kind of meditation practice or mindfulness practice as part of their warm-up before they go on stage. I think that's a really interesting common thread, and it kind of speaks to the greater theme I found in this whole episode about showing up. I asked Isabelle what her favorite part of creating work is, and she said the aha moments, those moments where the idea and the act, they just click. It's what Isabelle was talking about when she said that Shana Carroll suggested adding the apple to her tissue act. It's these things that transform an amorphous idea blob that just like floats around, and maybe you have some music, maybe you have a costume, maybe you have a general idea. These aha moments are the tangible hooks or goals or points of understanding. I don't know if I can explain it much better than that, but any creative in any artistic endeavor probably has had these moments, and they're so wonderful. And where do they come from? I asked Isabelle if she had a methodology, and she said she hadn't found one, but she knows it's about showing up. In other words, creativity or great ideas, compelling images, they don't just happen and then you go and act on them. So you're not like lying in bed and you're like, right, sometimes. But usually you're not just like lying in bed and then you're like, I have this great idea, and then you go act on them and bring them to light. Rather, you have to show up day after day and create the conditions for that aha moment to happen. And I think artistic creation is so much about having that trust. Isabelle talks about when she's making an act, she creates this layer, right? She has a skeleton or a general idea of what the act is going to be. And then she says the blanks will fill themselves. She works it over and over again and discovers the moments. In other words, she's not showing them or making them happen or forcing anything. The aha moments, the creative forces are all around her, and she's just showing up and letting it happen. You know, even when she talks about creating the seven fingers, it was interesting because I see this a lot. People who are like, we should do a show. We should make a group. We should do this act together. And what she said was the way the seven fingers started was they set a place and they set a date, and then they saw who came and showed up, who was really committed to creating, to making a circus company. And this is the big struggle for so many of us artists right now, right? So much of the artistic work has to happen in the studio, has to happen in collaboration with others. And the facts are that things are not going to be the same. The circumstances are not going to be such that we can do that for a very long time. But I have, and I think Isabelle voiced this a bit too, a great amount of faith in creatives, in circus artists, to find ways around, to apply some ingenuity, to find ways to keep making stuff, even though we can't get in the studio and invent together. And even though what we're making right now may feel like total crap or it's nothing like what we want, remember, everything can change. And your job is not to wait for those changes, not to sit around and twiddle your thumbs until those aha moments come to you. It's to find ways to keep showing up, keep making stuff, keep going. To find Isabelle's company, The Seven Fingers, online, you can go to sevenfingers.com. They're on Instagram, Seven Fingers, the number 7. And I will provide links in the show notes to the different acts that Isabelle referenced of her own. So you can go check them out there on my website. I don't think you can get them from Circus Talk. So go to my website, theartistathlete.com. For aerial training tips and inspiration, you can also follow me on Instagram. I'm at @the_artist_athlete. And again, if you love what you're listening to, I would love to have your support on Patreon. So go to patreon.com/theartistathlete. Thanks for tuning in. I'll talk at you next week, friends, fans, and enemies. The Artist Athlete podcast is supported solely by donations from people like you. Here's what some of those people have to say.
Hi, everyone. This is Allie Cooper, owner and coach at the Radical Movement Factory in Santa Cruz, California. I love supporting the Artist Athlete podcast and the amazing community Shannon has created here. I teach rope and fabric and have a circus conditioning app available on iTunes called Cirque Plus. You can follow me on Instagram at AllieCooper_, and if you find yourself in California, come say hi.
Hi, I'm Leah. I hate conditioning. So I created the ABCs of Fitness, a fun, full program of active flexibility, body weight, and cardio with personal daily check-ins to motivate you wherever you are and whatever discipline you do. Join our next 19-day check-in challenge and slide into my DMs on Instagram at ABCs of Fitness.
Aloha! My name is Beth Russell, and I live on the beautiful island of Maui, Hawaii. I am an aerial artist and movement instructor specializing in chakra yoga to keep me balanced and grounded. I play with silks, trapeze, lyra, rope, acro, aerial yoga and dance, slacklining, pole, bungee, and climbing. Really anything that goes up and allows me to explore 3D space. You can find my dedicated aerial page on Instagram at Maui Aerialist. If you find yourself coming to Maui, let's play.
Hey there, friends, fans, and enemies. This is Chris Alston, Patreon of the Artist Athlete Podcast, straps artist and lyra performer and acrobat out of Greenville, South Carolina. So if you're ever passing through, make sure to stop in and see me and my friends. We have a wonderful space, and we'd love to see you.
Hi, my name is Erica Lee. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm an aerialist. I teach performing arts to elementary school during the day and do pole and slings and ropes by night. I really, really like the Artist Athlete podcast because it gives me a lot of circus goals to look forward to. It gives me a lot of insight on what's going on around the world in circus, and that's why I'm Patreon.
Hello all. Thank you for tuning in to the Artist Athlete podcast. I am Opal Schwartz from Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you're ever in the cities, feel free to stop by the Aviary Minneapolis. It's a great time. With that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and goodbye.
Hey there, artists and athletes. This is Andy Smith, owner and artistic director at Saltaire Circus School in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. And I want to thank you for contributing to the Artist Athlete podcast. If you ever find yourself down in Florida, come check us out. Whether you're an artist, athlete, or someone ordinary just looking to be extraordinary, we got a place for you.